Hey there, I'm Chris Benetti, host of the Smart Author podcast. In this episode, I speak with Dr. Angela Loria of Difference Press, and we discussed how to write your book as a ghostwriter would. I think learning and understanding more about writing is really important because it can help you have a great book worth reading that leads people to the destination you want them to end up at. If you're currently stuck with writing a book, then this episode will be perfect for you as it will give you these steps and tools you need to get it done faster, easier, and make it more effective. Some of the main topics we will be covering today include why you should not start working with an editor until you have written your whole draft, the 4 types of books to write and the ones that make you the most money, and how to get people to buy your next offer before they even read your book. At the end of this episode, please make sure you visit our website where you can find the show notes plus all the links mentioned with Angela. And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. And if you're struggling with book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit and a clear plan to get your book sales back on track. Now, let's head over to this awesome interview. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Smart Author podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Angela Lauria. How are you, Angela?
I'm fantastic. I'll be playing the role of the smart author. Oh, wait, is that your job? I don't know. I love the name of this. Smart authors are my favorite authors.
Well, when I was working with my mentor on coming up with the name for my business and podcast, we settled on this, and then the reason why was because nobody wants to be a dumb author.
That's why that dummy series always makes me so mad. Like, I don't want someone to call me names, even on the cover of my books. I don't want 4 dummies on my shelf.
I'm not going to self-identify as a dummy.
Right. Like author tricks for dummies. No, smart author podcast. Let's go.
Angela, I would love if you can give everyone a bit of a background to yourself, because you've been in the space for quite some time and have had some amazing accolades and have, helped a lot of authors make a lot of money and write a lot of books.
Yes. So I am one of the rare people that went to school for the thing I'm actually doing, which is kind of fun. So I was journalism major, and my senior year in college, one of my professors recommended me for a job with a Pulitzer Prize winning New York Times bestselling author, all around amazing guy who changed my life. His name is David Wise. And I got out of college. I worked for him senior year, and then I got out of college and I worked for the best authors in Washington, D.C., generally investigative reporters. And my beat was espionage. So if there's anything you'd like to know about spycraft, ask me later. But I did everything. So I was a research assistant. I was an editor. I did ghostwriting. I interviewed people. I was a photographer. I still get checks for photography of drop sites for spies and things like that. Dead drop sites. I was a publicist. It was the beginning. This is I'll date myself now, but it was the beginning of AOL. And so I learned AOL Rain Man programming, which is like a forerunner to HTML. And I programmed keywords for authors in the AOL platform. So basically building web pages before there were web pages. And every possible way that I could support the authors that I worked for. I charged $10 an hour. It was all word of mouth. I did have business cards. I'm very proud to say, but other than that, I didn't have a company name. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a lead magnet. I just, for 17 years, went from author to author, helping them in various ways in their book. Ultimately, there were some major agents and publishers that hired me. I would ghostwrite forewords and blurbs for celebrities. And then one fortuitous day in 2010, I decided I was going to finally, after ghostwriting 29 books, working on 56 books in 17 years, I decided I was going to write my own book, a story about being an exchange student and then hosting an exchange student. And I think you know this, but I was an exchange student in Australia, in Melbourne. So actually in the Omeo Shire, in the middle of nowhere, back of Burke, Victoria, but near Melbourne, sort of. And then I hosted exchange students as well. And I wanted to tell that story. And I went to this conference. And at the conference, I didn't know what a life coach was. But the whole conference, it turned out, was all brand new life coaches learning how to write books from a memoirist I love named Martha Beck, who was also a life coach trainer. So I just sort of ended up in the wrong movie. And while I was at this conference, there were 24 people, including me, and 3 presenters. 2 of the 3 presenters and all 23 people in the audience hired me to work on their book. And I suddenly had 25 life coach clients that I was trying to help them develop a lead gen strategy, a writing strategy, a content marketing strategy, all the things I've been doing for my authors for 17 years, charging the same. At that point, I was charging $35 an hour.
Ooh.
Didn't know anything about business. Did nothing. And I actually got to my first million without a coach, without a website, without a Facebook ad. And it wasn't just word of mouth. What I did was I wrote a book and then I used social media and posted about my book largely on Twitter, of all places. Hello, 2011 wants their marketing strategy back. And I was able to build a book of business. And then eventually I hired an amazing coach named Kevin Nations. He taught me how to take my expertise and turn it into a business. My first year of working with him, I got to 3 million. And then in 2019, which was our best year, we did 20 million.
Wow.
We've worked with over 2,000 authors. And that's just on getting them from idea to bestseller. I've trained now over 50,000 authors on my difference process method. And it's super fun. So we make bestsellers every month and I get to work with a whole lot of smart authors. So that's a little bit on me.
This is like not dating me, but I don't even know what AOL is.
Do you really not know what AOL is? That's the best news ever. America Online, it was before the internet. There was a thing before the internet.
Right. So I was born in 94.
Prodigy.
So I think I'm
94.
right.
So that's the year I got my first job. So basically my work experience is your experience on Earth.
Oh, well, what an amazing story. What do you think was the biggest driver to your success in the space? Like, what made you different from everyone else?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the Malcolm Gladwell answer. Easily 10,000 hours before, I don't know, I was probably your age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wrote my first book. Well, first of all, I'm autistic. And I got really obsessed when I was 9 with this book series called Choose Your Own Adventure. Have you ever heard of these books? Okay.
I haven't heard of that specifically, but I used to read the Goosebumps version of that when I was in primary.
And so you'd get to the bottom of the page and it would say, do you want to go right or left? And then it would send you. Okay. So what I did, I didn't know this. I was 9. It was, I don't know, 1982 or something. And I would map out all the different endings. So I didn't want to read the book once. I wanted to see all the permutations. And so I used like note cards that I would make my mom go to like the chemist and buy me these note cards at the chemist. And then I would map out all the versions of the book, which is just outlining a book. I didn't know that. So when I was 7, I wrote my first book of poetry. When I was 9, I was deconstructing the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And when I was 13, I wrote my first novel. And then when I was 20, I got my job working for a New York Times bestseller. And part of that is I went to a great journalism school. But part of why I got into a great journalism school is I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I was a writer from the time I was 7 years old. So I I wrote kids' books when I was 5. I've always been obsessed with books. My best friends as a kid were the reference librarians at the Wallingford Public Library. So they all knew me by name. My goal was first of all, my career goal was to be a writer for the Contemporary Authors Encyclopedia. Aim high, girl, aim high. And a lot of people will tell you their stories of reading the whole encyclopedia. I didn't read the encyclopedia. I read the encyclopedia of authors. And so it's a bio on every single author. And I wanted to like read and memorize. And it was like, I don't know, it's something like 36 volumes in the reference library. So I'd go every day and like read and memorize all the authors. My SAT scores were great. Oh, that's our college entrance exams. So at least the lit on the English side, I always did fine.
Wow. So it was just like utter pure obsession around everything writing and being an author.
Yeah, I've known this was my thing. I'm so lucky. Like I know so many people who search for their thing. I search for many things, like friendships are really hard for me. Like lots of things are hard for me, but I've always known. And my dad's an entrepreneur. And he, when he was my age, when he was like 7 to 9, he got obsessed with cars. And so when he was a kid, he would shine shoes on the church steps. He saved all the like nickels and dimes people would pay him for shoe shining on Sundays on the St. Mary's New Haven church steps. And then when he was 16, he had enough money to buy his first car. And he took the car apart, put it back together, sold it for more money, bought 2 cars, and started his business at 16.
Wow.
And when I grew up, my dad's in the Hot Rod Hall of Fame. He did like a lot of famous cars, a lot of celebrity cars, TV show cars. And when I was growing up, I thought what everyone did is as a kid, you find the thing you love, you do it as much as you can, and then eventually you'll make lots of money doing the thing you love. I was 21 when I figured out everyone didn't love their job. My friend Stephanie, her dad had a retirement party. He worked in an insurance job. And I got invited to the retirement party and I went up to him and I was like, Mr. Inglis, like, congratulations on retiring. There's one thing I've always been wondering. When did you know you loved insurance? And he just sort of laughed and he kind of patted me on the head and said, thanks for being here. And we got in the car on the ride home and I was talking to Stephanie and I'm like, your dad didn't tell me his story though. Like, when did he fall in love with insurance?
Oh, wow.
And she's like, my dad hated his job every day of his life. What are you talking about? And she's like, do you think I like my job at Bill Bateman's seafood restaurant? I'm like, you don't love being a waitress? Like, what? How is this possible? So it was this huge awakening for me when I was 21. I'm like, people don't love their jobs. This must stop immediately.
Here's Angela just with her like blinders on, like so focused in on what she's doing, and obviously had a fantastic role model on what your dad wanted to do as well. So what a fantastic way to grow up though, just like only knowing pure passion and love for something.
So great. That's like the greatest gift my dad ever gave me. There's like that poem, you see children learn what they live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a great example because my dad never taught that to me. He never sat down to me. My dad didn't talk nicely to me. We were not close. And yet, like, the greatest gift in my life was watching him live his passion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just like leading by example kind of thing, rather, Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So I want to switch some gears here. No pun intended. But your real, I mean, there's multiple layers to your expertise, but I would say one of your most well-known expertise is helping with writing. And you've got a lot of no BS approach to, getting the book done, getting it out there, making sure that it's relevant and actually good. So Angela, I would love to know, if I came to you with an idea for a book, what would be the next steps? Like, how would I get started writing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I approach writing like a ghostwriter because for 17 years, I was a ghostwriter. I ghostwrote 29 books on things I knew nothing about. So what I teach really comes from ghostwriters only make money when they turn in a manuscript, right? So, I mean, maybe we get some up front, but we got to write a lot of books in a year to make money. We can't when people say I spent 3 years on a book, I'm like, oh, you need to be a lot hungrier to finish than that. And what you know as a ghostwriter is it is easier to write a book in less time rather than more, because your clients are going to change their mind every day that passes. They're going to get another idea. So you want to get the download from them, get all the information, record audio recordings, get all their get stacks and stacks of data. And then my background is also in software development. I did a lot of ghostwriting in software. Then you want a code freeze. You want to sign off on the code freeze. Like, no more data. I have all the data incoming. Now I'm going to write. You need to do the same thing as a writer. So let's say you have an idea and you want to write a book that supports the Smart Author podcast. And your idea is, I want to talk about how to be a smart author. Great, fine, good enough idea. There's a gathering info period. In my process, we call this the book basket. It's not a fancy name, but gather everything, research. All of that is a left brain activity. So gathering the research, organizing the research, don't write a thing. Gather your research first, sort it into piles. And I say research, but it's anything. We call them slugs, which is a journalism term. And so you can write on note cards, you can write on Post-it notes, you can print out blog posts, you can print out transcripts from podcasts you've done like this one, but just in any format, mishmash, gather everything and label it with a slug, which is a few keywords that tell you what it is. The story about the avocado, when I went skiing at Mount Hotham, like, you just want to write something that would trigger you. Meeting my first girlfriend. It's enough that it would tell you what it's about. So you turn all that research into these slugs. Then you sort the slugs into piles. No writing until you have that code freeze. Here are my piles. Each pile is a chapter. Here's what I'm writing about. Now you can write your book as quickly as you want, but usually a slug, I would give myself somewhere between 15 minutes and an hour to write about. So if you have a chapter, you'll have 5 to 10 things you're going to write about in each chapter. And all you do is you pick the next slug that you want to write. You can write it out of order. The Scrivener software is really good for organizing, but I mean, you can do it in Google Docs too. I take all my slugs, I put them into Google Docs with a header so I can see on the left. And then when I sit down to write, if I have 15 minutes, I'll just fill in wherever that slug is. Yeah. So a book is about 100 slugs. And you can fill them in, it turns out, in 2 to 3 days if you're focused. And you can also take a month or two. As a ghostwriter, you wouldn't normally take more than a month, and just fill in those slugs. You've already got the research. So if the slug has a folder that goes with it, or some files on your computer because it's statistics or data, you can grab it. But if it's your story of skiing in Mount Hotham, you're just going to sit down for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, write that story. And once you've filled in that draft, only then, and this is the number one thing about effectively writing a book, only once your full shitty first draft is done, do you work with an editor. Most people want to write one chapter and give it to an editor. And this is the most important thing, Chris, that you should know, or anyone writing a book. Editors edit. You will never give a chapter to an editor and the editor will say, that's perfect. I have no changes. Has not happened in the beginning of time. It's like giving a contract to a lawyer and the lawyer's like, this contract is perfect. I have no changes. It's never happened. Lawyers lawyer, editors edit. So they will up 100%. If you give them a chapter, they're going to give you feedback. They're going to be like, Chris, you're saying smart author, but I really think these tips should be for being an efficient author. Now you're rebranding, you're asking other people advice, you're back to your coach. We got to redo the whole outline. And with every chapter, authors are like back to the starting block. Map your slugs, have the whole set of what you're going to write, fill in the first draft beginning to end, then get an editor involved. That is the secret to getting a good book done quickly and efficiently.
And do you have any tips for like the slug structure? Because like a lot of people, they might be writing a book, they have an idea, but they don't necessarily know what the outcome of the book should be or what the book will actually do for their business. So I would love to know, how do you work on that with your clients?
Yep. We have 4 primary types of books that we work on. And we start with our clients. Part of the difference process is framing your outcomes. So before you start creating your slugs, you could start doing your book basket, but before you really create your slugs and the order they go in, what we have to identify is what is the purpose of your book. And there are 4 main purposes. My favorite and your favorite, and the one that makes a lot of money really fast, is what I call a client conversion book. So about 80% of our authors write a client conversion book. For comparison, 76% of our authors make $100,000 or more from their book in the first year. Mm-hmm. And those numbers pair up. If you're writing a client conversion book, you can make a ton of money. You got to have something to convert them to, but it could be anything. We've sold curling irons. We've sold so it could be a product, it could be a service. We've sold $100,000 executive coaching packages with a book to, $50 curling irons. Doesn't matter what it is. So if you have something to sell, there is a very specific structure that we use for the book, which reveals to a prospect, even a prospect who buys the book but doesn't even read it, just from reading the table of contents in the description, it will reveal to the buyer or the reader of the book that you can help them solve this problem. It frames a problem you solve, and it gives the solution just in the book description in the table of contents. Usually the purchases happen after the book is downloaded, but before it's read.
Wow.
That is when people are most likely to buy, right after they find out about you, right after they get your book. They are most likely to read your book cover to cover after they've given you that second payment. So that's the client conversion book structure. And it's based on teaching what you know, sharing what your product does. It is marketing copy, but with a lot of storytelling approach to it. So that's a client conversion book. I'll quickly run through the other 3, which make less money, but sometimes people like them. One is an influencer book, or what we call a list building book. This doesn't make you money short term, but it will build an audience for you that you can make money long term with something like monetizing your content on YouTube or TikTok. So as an example, I have a client who helps women find bras that fit, but she doesn't sell bras. The way she makes money is brands, lingerie brands, hire her to make content for them or to model their bras or to teach their employees about her bras. So she's got a 6-figure influencer business in the bra space, difficult to fit bras, but her book is all for consumers. So she was able to get 50,000 downloads of her book and then go to the manufacturers and say, 50,000 people have bought my book. You might want to hire me to create content for your brand.
Makes sense.
So that's a list building book. It does make money. It's a little bit of a longer play. It's an influencer play, but it does work. The next type of book that we do is a platform speaking book. And this is a book that is structured into 10 to 12 keynote speeches. So a chapter, if you spoke a chapter, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. So we actually write 10 to 12, 15 to 20 minute speeches. that could be expanded into a 1-hour keynote or a 4-hour workshop that are going to be sold. These are my professional speaker clients. They do the 15-20 minute reel of that speech, and we put them together in an order and for the same audience. But that structure is really selling you as a speaker, and it gives you 12 different pitch letters that you can send out for different conferences. So we start by targeting what conferences do you want to speak at? What are they hiring speakers on? And then we set the book up so you can say, check out chapter 4. It would be perfect for your audience.
Yeah.
And then the last kind, which I will tell you, 80% of my clients want to write this kind of book when they come to me. And I talk them into one of the other 3 kinds, because the other 3 kinds make money. This kind does not. And that is what I call a personal expression book. So that is a hero's journey. I had trauma, bad things happened. I met somebody, the person helped me. It changed everything. Now I'm bringing the sweet elixir back to you to change your life. That does not make any money. It might make you feel good, and it might be a great gift for your mom at the holidays. But short of that, like, your trauma, unless, it's Beyonce telling all of her personal secrets, is not going to sell any books or get you a client. I still have
Will Smith.
10%.
Sorry.
Yeah, or Will Smith. Will Smith can write that book.
Yeah.
Will Smith can 100% write that book. And once you are as famous as Will Smith, come to me. I will help you write a hero's journey personal expression book. However, your personal expression book is really just boring AF.
Angela, you so piqued my interest with the first book and even just like the outline. Can we dive into that a little bit more in the last 5 minutes that we have here?
Well, if anybody is working with you or thinking about working with you on book funnels, if you don't have a client conversion book, the book funnel, I'm not saying it won't work, but it will be significantly less effective. And if I weren't on a call with you, I would probably say it won't work. So and what I mean by it won't work, like, you write a personal expression book or a platform speaking book or influencer book or whatever, write anything, publish your journal. Chris can almost certainly sell copies of that with good marketing copy, but it's going to cost him or cost you more per book to sell. So I guess if you have some sort of ego thing and you want to spend, I don't know, what are you spending now? $5, $10 to sell a book? So
on the low end, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to spend $10 and sell a book that you lose money selling, have at it. But really what I recommend is that you have a client conversion book, because with my clients, what we see is for every book they sell, they make $624. So let's just say you spend $10 with Chris, you give him 10, and then the machine in your living room gives you back $624, refund the $10, keep the $614, and go buy a nice pair of shoes. It's a very nice trade-off when you have a client conversion book. So here's how it works. Oh, you want to say anything to that?
I was just going to say, so like one of my recent clients, we in the first month we sold over 250 books and upfront income was over $5,000. So I could just imagine, and she has a book that's similar to that client conversion structure. And
that was upfront. So what I'm talking about is lifetime value. So she sold, like, let's just say for easy math, it was 5 clients at $1,000 each. Great news. That's $5,000. Delicious. What else is she going to sell those 5 people? Because if we can take that average value from $1,000 to $10,000, now she sold 250 books. Let's just, for easy math, say it was $10 each. She spent $2,500 and she's going to make $50,000. Delicious, I tell you, delicious. That's why book funnels are the single best way to grow your book, to grow your business and grow your revenue if you have the right book. And that's my focus, is on making sure people get the right book. So I'll give you the breakdown of this structure. Do you ever read, it's like a viral, I feel like it's an old school viral blog, but it's Perry Belcher's like 21 steps to writing a great sales letter or something like that.
Yes, I have read that actually.
Everyone's read it. I feel like it's like reading about, Dean Jackson's 9-word email. It's like if you're in internet marketing, you know Perry Belcher's 21-step sales letter. It is a very similar process. Now, you're not with a book doing that direct sell you would do with a direct response copy sales letter. But a lot of those long form direct response copy sales letters are in the 20 to 30,000 word range. They really are, in many cases, like a book. The first part, which in a sales letter we'd call a hook. And by the way, the title is like a headline. So the title needs to be, it can only be one of two things. Your ideal client, not reader, but the person who is going to give you their credit card after they get the book, your ideal client's problem solved or their dream come true. Mm-hmm. So you want to start by identifying that problem and dream come true, because that's the title. Most people want to give the title as a description of what is in the book. No, my friend, that will not make you money. The title of the book is the single most important factor. It almost certainly shouldn't have your picture on it. It really shouldn't have your picture on it if it's a book about losing weight and you're skinny, because that's just going to talk people into not buying it. It definitely should have your picture on it if you're Will Smith. So again, see Will Smith's followers for details and proceed accordingly. So you want to either have a plain cover or something that's going to capture your customer avatar. Not your reader avatar, your customer avatar. Distinction is key. The first chapter is where the reader is going to decide whether or not to continue. And so that first chapter cannot be about you, my friend. Everyone is listening to What's in It for Me radio. The only thing they want to hear is about themselves. And we need to set up cliffhangers so that people will keep reading and know what they're going to get. This is where you create the envelope. So what I say is like in Australia, do you know what the Publishers Clearinghouse is? Have you ever heard that phrase?
No.
Okay. In America, there's this thing where they deliver you a whole bunch of junk mail, but in that junk mail, you may have won $1 million. And it's the Publishers Clearinghouse letter. It's a blue envelope. And if you don't open this crappy piece of junk mail, you will not know if you are the person who won $1 million, right? So the blue envelope and Publishers Clearinghouse is saying, and it says on the front, win $1 million. Did you win $1 million? Open this and find out if you won $1 million. That is my dream come true. I am not going to lose this envelope. Mm-hmm. That first chapter has to set up the problem and the dream come true. So I got to keep reading. I got to know if I win $1 million. I got to know if I'm going to get my result. It is not your bio. It is not why you wrote the book. It is not that you were born on a bayou. No one wants your life story here. We want our life story. Tell me you can read my mind. Tell me you know me. That is the first chapter. After that, you have earned the right to tell them one thing about yourself, which is why should they listen to you? And the second chapter is why should they listen to you? You got to make a case that I should listen to you on this matter. So it is your story, but it is only your story in reference to that client avatar.
Makes sense.
Now in chapter 3, we can lay out what is the solution to my problem. Mm-hmm. Why do I need this curling iron? Why do I need to start a restaurant? Why do I need to balance my checkbook? So what is the framework? What's the structure at a high level? If the reader only reads the first 3 chapters, they should have a good sense of what your book is about. Why? Because that's where most people quit. Most people don't read. Of every 100 books you sell, only 27 of those will have any pages read. And 16% of people of that 16% will just read the first 3 chapters or less. But you'll get less than, you get about 10%, 11% of people that'll read the whole book. It's a very low number. Most people are not reading your book, even the ones who buy it. It's decoration.
16% of people read out of the 27% original. 27.
No, out of 100%, 16% will read something.
Sure.
11% will read everything. And altogether, only 27% of people will read anything in your book other than the back cover copy and the title. So So that's the first 3 chapters. They're the most important 3. If you get these wrong, you could still sell books, you could give books away, but you will not convert at the numbers you need to get that 10x ROI. And we've tested this over 13 years now, 16 ways to Sunday. The next part of your book is the meat of the book. And that's where you can finally teach them the things you want to teach them, tell them the things you want to tell them. It can be any length, but I recommend this part of the book is no more than 12 chapters. We like to keep it around 7 or 8 in the middle. So let's just say that it's 7 chapters on top of the first 3. That's 10. And then there's 2 final chapters where we close our sales letter. So we go back to that Perry Belcher sales letter format. The second to last chapter is predicting the sales obstacles and overcoming the obstacles without ever talking about buy this from me. So you can talk about your clients, you can talk about your successes, you can talk about your story, but you don't want to say, I'm selling something, buy it. You want to say in general, what are people's objections and what are the obstacles to people achieving the dream come true? So if the dream come true is win $1 million, most people don't even open the envelope. Most people don't make the time to look through every page. Most people don't spend the money to order the magazines that get them extra entries. And in the last 20 years, everyone that's won has bought other entries. So you want to identify what are the obstacles to them doing that. It's usually time and money, but often there are some other like mindset issues. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our mindset chapter in many cases. And then the last chapter is, again, should be able to stand totally on its own. It's a lot like the third chapter. You restate the framework, you explain the process again, you go through ideal, problem, and dream come true, and then you leave your reader with their next step in a not salesy way. So the next step might be take action, find a coach, go buy a curling iron that's going to make your hair dreams come true. Here's what to look for, questions to ask when picking your realtor. And then after all that's done, we're going to have what's called back matter. So we'll have acknowledgments about the author, maybe your index, maybe a glossary. And at the very last page, that's where you can drop an ad in. Usually I like to put an ad for a lead magnet. If you have a super low ticket, like a slow, that's maybe like a $27 program or something, you could put that in there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people put a direct call to action for a sales call. I don't really like that because it's kind of like asking for sex on the first date. I'd rather you give a little more value and focus on getting their email address for people that get to that page. If you look at numbers from KENP, which is like the Kindle Express program, you can see that the first page people go to is the table of contents. Second most popular page people go to is the last page of the book. So that's where you want to put your ad.
Wow. I hope everyone was taking notes on that. Seriously.
If you didn't take notes, it's okay. You can, I do a free training on this. That's like a 5-hour workshop. Awesome. So you can come to 5daybooklaunch.com and I teach all this a whole lot slower.
Awesome.
And with more detail.
That'll all absolutely be linked in the show notes. Angela, we've run out of time here, but thank you so much for graciously sharing all of that with us. Is 5-day?
Yeah. So 5daybooklaunch.com, or you can check out our books and a whole bunch of other free content at differencepress.com. And there's probably a link to the 5-day book launch there. So awesome. That's a free week of coaching with me where I walk you through this for your book particularly. And why do I do that? Because if you have a good book and a good book structure, it's going to make sense to hire me and my team to edit it, design it, publish it, get you bestseller status, and then hook you up with Chris to run some ads that make you a hell of a lot of money from that book. So I want everyone to have a great book structure. And I know once you spend a week with me, you're going to be like, I just need this girl to do it. So
wicked. All of that will absolutely be linked in the show notes. And thanks again, Angela. It's been an amazing episode with you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
What an awesome episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing on your podcast platform of choice so you get notified every single time a new episode releases. And if you're struggling with your book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit of your book sales to see where we can help you bridge the gap between not many sales to a lot of sales. It's a free resource call that we have together where I give you some clear action steps that you can take to take your stuff from broken to selling. I'll see you over there. Thanks again for listening.